Imagine you're gazing at someone you've loved for years, and yet in that moment they still surprise you. There's a spark that defies routine, that presses you to lean in, to stay alive in the mystery of love. I'm here today to share the secret to long, lasting relationships, not because love is easy, but precisely because it's a courageous act of staying curious, even when familiarity beckons. Novelty is not simply about doing something new for the sake of it. It is about cultivating a state of aliveness inside a relationship that may otherwise collapse under the weight of routine. At the beginning of love, everything is discovery. Every glance, every touch, every word feels infused with meaning. We watch our partner with curiosity. We listen as though each story reveals a hidden map. Over time, the familiarity that once felt like safety can become a kind of quiet dullness. We begin to assume we know everything, that there are no surprises left, and in that moment, desire often withers. Aliveness requires us to keep questioning, to keep discovering, to resist the temptation of certainty. It is about maintaining curiosity about the person beside us, even if we have lived with them for decades. We must ask, who are you today, in this very moment? What dreams or fears have taken shape in you since yesterday? It is an act of imagination, of refusing to reduce the other to a static version of themselves. Novelty often gets confused with grand gestures, exotic vacations, adventurous experiences, extravagant surprises, and while those can inject excitement, novelty at its core is much simpler. It is about offering freshness to the everyday. It can mean speaking with your partner in a tone you haven't used before, asking them a question you never thought to ask, creating a moment that breaks the rhythm of predictability. Even a small change, like taking a different path on a walk together or turning off the lights during dinner, can awaken a new sense of presence. What truly ignites aliveness is not external novelty alone, but internal reinvention. When you change, when you grow, when you bring new parts of yourself into the relationship, your partner gets to fall in love again, not with a stranger, but with the evolving version of you. Desire feeds on that sense of discovery. It wants to meet the parts of you that are still unfolding, that are not fully known. To keep a relationship alive, you must allow yourself to be seen in different lights, and you must allow your partner the same freedom. There is a paradox here. We often long for stability in love, but stability without change breeds monotony, and while we want security, we also crave surprise. Too much safety can become suffocating. Too much unpredictability can create chaos. The art is to hold both, to build a foundation strong enough to provide trust and flexible enough to let in the unexpected. Aliveness through novelty emerges at this intersection, where we can rest in the safety of love while still feeling the thrill of uncertainty. Think of how attraction often spikes when we see our partner in their element outside the routines of home, watching them speak passionately to others, dance freely, or lose themselves in something they love. It reminds us that they are not only ours. They are still a mystery, still unfolding. That glimpse of otherness rekindles desire. Novelty is born in these moments, when we allow the other to be both familiar and elusive at once. To cultivate this aliveness, we must remain open to play. Playfulness is the language of novelty. It gives us permission to step out of roles, to invent, to be silly, to experiment. In play, we loosen the grip of responsibility and rediscover the joy of spontaneity. Play is not frivolous, it is essential. It allows us to touch the vitality that keeps love breathing. Ultimately, novelty is a discipline of attention. It is the decision to notice what is easily overlooked, to remain curious when it is tempting to grow complacent. It is the courage to surprise and to be surprised. Long-term love is not kept alive by the passage of time, but by the renewal of imagination. When we choose novelty, we are not abandoning security. We are breathing life into it, and so aliveness is not a gift we stumble upon. It is a practice. It asks us to keep seeing our partner as if for the first time, to invite mystery into the familiar, to welcome the unknown into the known. That is where desire awakens. That is where love stays alive. Too much closeness can feel like a gift, but sometimes it is also a thief. In the glow of intimacy, we wrap ourselves in each other's arms, sharing every thought, every detail, every space of our lives. At first, this feels intoxicating, two becoming one, the bliss of complete union. Yet over time, that same closeness can quietly erode desire. When everything is known, when every corner has been illuminated, the mystery that once sparked attraction begins to fade. Love thrives on safety, but desire breathes in the air of distance. Mystery is not deception, it is not secrecy. It is the art of preserving space for the unknown, of allowing our partner to remain slightly beyond our full grasp. There is a part of every human being that cannot and should not be fully possessed. When we acknowledge this, when we respect the boundary between the self and the other, we create room for longing to exist. Desire is always for what is just out of reach. It is drawn toward the horizon, toward what cannot be fully owned. In long relationships, we often equate closeness with transparency. We imagine that if we know everything about the other person, every preference, every story, every insecurity, we will finally have arrived at intimacy, and yet intimacy without mystery can become suffocating. It is the paradox of love. We crave both familiarity and surprise, both comfort and excitement. Without space, there is no longing. Without mystery, there is no desire. Think about the moments when attraction unexpectedly surges. Often it is when we see our partner in their own world, animated by something outside of us, giving a presentation, laughing with friends, absorbed in their art, or lost in concentration. In those moments, we catch sight of them as separate, as other, as someone we cannot fully own. We are reminded that they are not just an extension of us, but an independent being with inner landscapes we do not fully know. That glimpse reignites the flame of desire. Space is not absence in the negative sense. It is not rejection or abandonment. It is an active choice to step back, to let the other breathe, to allow difference to exist. When we give space, we invite longing. We make room for missing, and in missing, desire grows. To be apart is not always to drift away. It is often the very act that brings us closer when we return. Lovers who understand this know that a little distance can be more erotic than constant presence. We often speak about commitment as if it requires the obliteration of boundaries, as if love means dissolving into one. But true commitment allows each partner to remain whole, to remain distinct. In that distinctness, mystery lives. If I know everything about you, if you have revealed every corner of your mind, then there is nothing left to discover. Desire cannot survive in a place where everything is already possessed. Mystery is not built from hiding, but from revealing slowly. It is the decision to keep unfolding over time, to allow new facets of yourself to emerge. It is also the humility to accept that no matter how much we share a life with someone, they will always contain parts we cannot access. To love someone is to live with the knowledge that they are, in some ways, unknowable, and it is precisely this unknowability that keeps attraction alive. Too much exposure can flatten excitement. When the curtain is always open, the performance loses its intrigue. We must allow some veils to remain, some layers to stay undisclosed, not as a deception, but as an invitation. To love is not to conquer the other's inner world, but to dance with its mystery. Space and mystery are not threats to intimacy. They are its companions. They remind us that we are not here to consume each other, but to witness, to explore, to marvel. They give us the chance to long again, to reach across the distance, to discover what feels both familiar and entirely new. In the end, the lovers who endure are those who understand that closeness is not measured by constant contact. It is measured by the ability to be together and apart, to hold each other and release each other, to remain curious in the face of what cannot be fully known. Love gives us a home. Mystery keeps us awake inside it. Long, Lasting relationships flourish not in spite of mystery, but because of it. When intimacy becomes predictability, desire often fades, not because love is lost, but because wonder has slipped away. To keep that spark flickering, we must feed erotic aliveness through novelty, imagination, and the willingness to remain unknown, even to someone we love deeply. Care is essential. It builds trust and safety. But if care becomes the entire relationship, it can smother desire. Remember, desire is about what I can take, and care is about what I can give. We must bring both, nurture and ask, give and receive, and let us not forget the power of distance. It's in the absence, in the gap, that desire finds breathing room. Being away gives us space to miss each other, to re-enter one another's world with fresh eyes and fresh longing. Above all, erotic intelligence is about imagination. It's not merely sex. It's the capacity to dream together, to play, to surprise, to create a private language of longing that transcends the expected. This is where love becomes aliveness. Care is the foundation of love. It is the impulse to nurture, to protect, to provide comfort, to ensure the well-being of the one we cherish. Without care, intimacy withers. We cannot feel safe in the absence of tenderness. Yet care alone is not enough to sustain passion, because while care gives us stability, desire feeds on freedom. Desire needs air, it needs unpredictability, it needs the possibility of something that is not guaranteed. The challenge for any long-lasting relationship is to hold both the security of care and the vitality of freedom. When we first fall in love, care and desire seem to live in harmony. The tenderness of affection amplifies the spark of attraction, and the excitement of desire makes care feel effortless. Over time, however, the scales begin to shift. Life brings routines, responsibilities, perhaps children, and with them an ever-growing emphasis on caregiving. We become reliable, we become providers, we become steady, and while all of this is necessary, there is a subtle cost. The more we are defined by the role of caretaker, the harder it becomes to inhabit the role of lover. Care is about giving, desire is about taking. Care is selfless, a reaching out toward the other. Desire is selfish, a drawing inward, an acknowledgement of personal longing. Both are essential, but when the balance tips too far into care, the erotic pulse often diminishes. We become so focused on meeting the needs of the other that we forget to stay in touch with our own. And desire cannot flourish when we are disconnected from what we ourselves want. Freedom, in this sense, is not the opposite of commitment. It is the space within commitment that allows us to remain connected to our individuality. To feel free in a relationship means we can still breathe, still choose, still follow our own longings and bring them back to our partner. It means we do not collapse into the role of caregiver so completely that we disappear as a separate being. Freedom is what allows us to remain a mystery, to hold on to the parts of ourselves that generate curiosity, creativity, and passion. The paradox is that the very care that makes love possible can also stifle the freedom that sustains desire. To balance the two requires a conscious effort. It asks us to give generously, but not to the point of erasing ourselves. It asks us to nurture the relationship without smothering it, to offer comfort without extinguishing the erotic. It requires boundaries, both external and internal, the capacity to say, I love you, and I also need space to nourish who I am outside of us. Think about how many couples struggle once caregiving becomes the central theme. When children arrive, when careers demand attention, when one partner becomes ill, the caretaker role becomes dominant, and the partner who was once a lover is now a manager, a parent, a nurse. The erotic bond suffers because the space for play, for imagination, for selfish pleasure has been overtaken by responsibility. The way back is not to abandon care, but to reclaim freedom within it. It might mean taking time apart, pursuing personal passions, or simply allowing oneself to be seen not only as the provider of comfort, but as a person with desires of their own. Freedom also means permission to take, not just to give. To say, I want, instead of always asking, what do you need? It is the courage to assert longing, to claim pleasure, to step outside the caregiving role and into the realm of passion. When both partners can express desire in this way, they restore a balance where care supports the relationship, but freedom fuels the spark that makes it feel alive. Balancing care with freedom is not about choosing one over the other. It is about creating a rhythm between them. Sometimes we lean into care, offering comfort when life demands it. Other times we lean into freedom, carving out space to rediscover each other with fresh eyes. The dance between these poles is what sustains both love and desire over time. In the end, lasting relationships are not built on care alone, nor on freedom alone. They endure because partners learn to hold both, the safety of knowing they are cherished and the thrill of knowing they are still free to desire and be desired. To love deeply is to care. To desire deeply is to claim freedom. And the secret to sustaining passion is to never let one silence the other. Erotic intelligence is not about performance, nor is it confined to what happens in the bedroom. It is the capacity to keep desire alive through imagination, through the ability to cultivate play, curiosity, and creativity in intimacy. Desire is not a natural consequence of love, it is an art that requires tending. What fuels it is not simply physical attraction, but the way our minds engage with longing, anticipation, and possibility. Imagination becomes the bridge between safety and excitement, between what we have and what we still yearn for. At the start of a relationship, imagination flows easily. We project onto each other, invent stories, embellish, and dream. The unknown gives us space to fantasize, but as time goes on, familiarity settles in. We convince ourselves that we know everything about the other, and the realm of imagination shrinks. We stop inventing because we believe there is nothing left to invent. And yet, desire is not sustained by certainty. It thrives in the gaps, in what is yet to be discovered, in the possibility that the other still contains uncharted territory. Erotic intelligence is the refusal to collapse intimacy into monotony. It is the ability to say, even though I live with you, sleep next to you, raise children with you, and know your routines inside out, I can still see you as new, as other, as surprising. It is the willingness to remain curious, to imagine our partner as more than the roles they play. When we engage with imagination, we do not just see the partner who is cooking dinner or answering emails. We glimpse the lover, the mysterious being who is still partly unknown to us. Imagination is not only about fantasy, it is about perspective. It allows us to step outside the narrow lens of routine and rediscover what we already have. When we picture our partner through the eyes of someone else, when we see them shining in their own world, when we imagine them not as ours, but as autonomous, desire rekindles. The mind generates longing by creating distance, by reminding us that the other is not fully possessed. Erotic intelligence also means giving ourselves permission to play. Playfulness keeps the erotic alive because it resists rigidity. It allows us to create scenarios, to tease, to invent rituals that belong only to us. It makes room for humor, for lightness, for surprise. In play, we suspend the seriousness of life and allow desire to be joyful rather than pressured. Couples who play keep their imagination alive, and with it, their erotic energy. Another dimension of erotic intelligence is the courage to embrace fantasy. Fantasy is not a betrayal of reality. it is a complement to it. Our fantasies are not necessarily things we want to enact. They are expressions of desire, of curiosity, of hidden layers of ourselves. Sharing them with a partner, or simply allowing them to exist privately, can open pathways to intimacy. They expand the field of what is possible, reminding us that desire is infinite in the mind even when reality is finite. But imagination does not only apply to sex. It is the way we create rituals of anticipation, the text sent in the middle of the day, the deliberate glance across a crowded room, the way we dress not only for practicality but for allure. These gestures are small acts of imagination that elevate the ordinary into something charged. They say, I see you, I choose you, I want you, still, after all this time. Erotic intelligence asks us to resist the temptation of autopilot. To bring imagination into love is to resist the deadening certainty of, I already know everything there is to know. It is to allow the other to surprise us, to reveal new layers, to continue being a mystery. This mystery is not a threat to intimacy, but its very lifeblood. The truth is, desire is less about what we do than about how we think. It is less about frequency than about quality, less about mechanics than about imagination. A single look infused with longing can contain more erotic charge than hours of mechanical repetition. What matters is not only the act, but the story we tell ourselves around it, the narrative that imagination creates. To sustain passion in long-term love, we must nurture this imaginative capacity. We must be willing to reinvent, to reimagine, to see our partner not just as who they are, but as who they might become. Erotic intelligence is about keeping the door open to possibility, to curiosity, to surprise. It is about remembering that the most powerful aphrodisiac is not novelty alone, but the imagination that keeps novelty alive. And so, desire is not lost with time. It is lost when imagination fades. When we choose to cultivate imagination, to remain playful, curious, and inventive, we breathe life back into intimacy. Erotic intelligence is the practice of seeing love not as a static possession, but as an evolving creation. It reminds us that passion is not given, it is made and remade through the endless possibilities of the mind. So ask yourself today, when was the last time your partner surprised you? When did you last feel the thrill of rediscovery? That moment, that fleeting, electrifying moment, is the secret to something that lasts. Stay curious, stay alive, stay surprised, because a relationship that continues to surprise is one that will endure. Thank you.